We're live, we're live.
Hola, 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 ¿cómo
Viva.
están todos? Yo sé eso porque, ¿qué onda? Todo lo que está pasando ahorita. Oh my gosh. Did we take off already? I heard the
Ya
countdown.
estamos, ya nos salimos.
Ya estamos aquí, ya estamos en las nubes. Well, welcome. I'm La Super Comadre Claudia with RadioCrystalUSA.com. And I am here with none other than the super ingeniera Liliana Elizondo.
¿Cómo están? How's everyone doing? Muchas gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. Por favor, compartan estos videos porque es de mucha información para toda la comunidad. Everyone, please share all these videos. It's to help our community. Okay?
Exactly.
Bye, comadre. I'll see you later.
Adios, super comadre.
Please talk about our new guest.
Yes, I'm super excited. You know, a couple of things too. The last time we had our little our super comadre talk was with Hurricane Laura. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that Hurricane Laura didn't come. And speaking of Hurricane Laura, we have Ada, and Ada is here, and you know, she started a new position back in the summer, and she's going to tell us all about it. And my new super comadre for today is Ada Ortega. Where's Ada Ortega? Woo!
Hello.
There you are. So just to give you a little bit of a background of what I do with my show, the platform is about a super comadreo, and it's an informal way of talking about formal and important topics. You know, I grew up, I don't know about you, but I grew up like listening in, you know, las tías, las madrinas, las abuelitas. Comadreando, right?
Uh-huh.
They were always on top of everything, whether it was school, work, food, elections. And this is what this approach is about. It's just taking that same home approach we had growing up and just talking about important things. So I want everyone that's listening to know that we are kicking off El Mes de la Herencia Hispana with my first Hispanic heritage awesome Latina, or whatever you want to call yourself, but you know, I would call her Latina, Hispana, just an all-around amazing woman that has stepped into an amazing position here for the city of Houston. So Ada Ortega, press secretary for Mayor Sylvester Turner. Woo! Welcome.
When you say it out loud, it sounds very nice.
Yes. So tell us about you, a little bit about you. Who is Ada? Where's Ada from? A little bit about your family, and then we're going to go into talking about this super position you have as a press secretary.
Of course, Claudia. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me and, you know, letting me be part of this comadreo. I definitely can relate, you know, being young, especially when you start, you know, realizing and understanding, right, like what the issues that they're talking about and how they affect you personally and your community. So, you know, it's funny when you say that because my parents or wherever I was would always like, they would kick us out, right? Like, esta conversación es para adultos. So I always have that memory, right? And now we're the adults, right? Some of us are adults, and we have to make sure that we continue to have these conversations and that we talk about issues that, you know, are important and vital to the betterment and, you know, just the prosperity of our community, especially our Latino. So, you know, with that, I'll backtrack and I'll go back to my roots, right? And my roots are, I'm a Rio Grande Valley girl. I grew up, I was actually born in Matamoros, Tamaulipas, so on the border. And when I was about 5 years old, we moved officially to Brownsville, right? But lived the border town life. It was one of those where every weekend, you know, we'd go to Matamoros for, you know, family parties, you know, birthday parties, church, you name it. So, you know, pretty much from when I was like 5 to when I was 18, I grew up in that setting. And it's something that I really, you know, I love. And as I get older, I really cherish it and I appreciate, you know, growing up in the Valley. Obviously I left. And once I left and I realized, you know, what I wanted to do and what interests me, I it was one of those where people were like, you forgot about the valley. Well, I was like, no, I didn't forget about the valley. I just, grew wings and I had to extend my wings somewhere. So, but it's always it's always in my heart, right? It always holds a special place for me. And so when I was about 18, I moved to 18, 19, I moved to Washington, D.C., right? People are always like, how did you go from Brownsville all the way to D.C.? And it was because of my sister, right? My older sister. Her and I, it's that hermana bond that we have where it's only us two, right? And she's 6 years older than I am, but we've always just been really, really close. Like even, before I was born, she was always asking my parents like for a little brother or sister.
Oh.
The day that I was born, she cried to my parents, was like, please let the baby sleep with me in my room, right? And it's like a newborn, you bring a newborn from home. And my parents, they're like, okay. So we always say that that's kind of like why we're so close, because we formed our bond right away. So anyway, so she was working for a member of Congress, right? So she was already involved in
okay.
Yeah. She was the one that she opened the door and for me, right? And once I got in, like I had my own interests, but within the political arena. So it was, she was there, and we grew up in a very conservative Mexican household, like, to where we have no brothers. So it's just us, two women, and her as the oldest, she always would take like, she's always tells me like, I had it so much harder than you did.
Yeah. Which she took the punches while paving the way.
She definitely did.
Wow.
Yeah. So, it was one of those where my parents were like, I was graduating from high school. She had left. She realized, right, like she had to stay home when she did her undergrad, because that's how strict my parents were.
Yes.
Stay
Yeah.
home,
I
watch you.
I know.
Yeah.
Para echarte el ojo.
Echarte el ojo, yeah. But so they told her, said, if you ever want to leave, it'd be for your master's, right? So she took their word on it, right?
Let's go.
Yeah, she's like, this is what you said. And
took them to their word. You said.
Exactly. So from her doing that opened a lot of opportunities, and that's how she ended up. Right? She did an internship that turned into a job, and it was a great time for her. So when I was graduating, she called me and she's like, have you thought about like maybe you coming up here? She's like, because I really want you to have the actual, like the real college experience that I didn't have, right? Like going away, living away from home and just going to classes, just having a different environment. And even though I was always like very book smart, and I cared about my grades, and I was persistent about being a good student, I never saw beyond, right? And it's because I think in the communities that we live in, right, it's not ingrained the way it is in other communities to like, no, like you're gonna graduate, you're gonna go to this school, you're gonna go to this college, you're gonna take your classes, and you're gonna become this professional. And for us, it's more like, okay, what's next? Like as you go, right? Because it all comes down to the systemic education that we have. And I think because it's not taught to us, right, it's more of like make it to the finish line and then see what happens next. So when she told me that, I was like, oh, like it made me think, and I was like, yeah, she's right. So I talked to my parents, and my parents were like, they're like, well, you guys would be together, so that's the only reason why or way we would let you do that. So we did.
Porque ella te va a echar el ojo.
Ella me echa el ojo.
Ella te va a echar el ojo. So with that in mind, because you have touched on, like you literally touched on a whole book that could be given to parents, handbooks, because it almost seems like within our community, there's always that first one. I feel like you're like, even within me, hearing your story is very similar to what I went through. My parents told me, you're going to college, but you're going to go to college here in Houston. And that's it, because te vas a quitar la casa casada o en un cajón. I'm like, oh my gosh, vestida de novia en un cajón. I'm like, okay, right?
Yeah. So that's actually me. That's
Look at you. So tell us about this picture right here. So here you are. Where are you? Tell us, take us to that place.
Club, the National Press Club in DC. And that's where, you know, a lot of these organizations and members of Congress, I'm sure even, you know, the president holds press conferences. So yeah, that man, like thinking back and just thinking of the opportunities that I had at that age, like really just, you know, I would never like turn it around, or, you know, I would never think of taking it for granted. Like it was just, it was a great time.
Great time, and such a
Yeah,
great
so
experience and a growing experience.
a very growing experience. So I ended up, you know, moving, started, and I had some difficulties. You know, what I thought I wanted, I didn't end up having, and pretty much I applied to the school, right, which turned out to be like outside of the suburbs of DC, which was really far. But of course, one, not being from there, not knowing, don't know. And you know, it turned out that I would have to pay out-of-state tuition, even though I was living in DC and the school was so I had to make a very adult and executive decision of not doing it for one semester, and you know, and saying, okay, I'm not gonna, no, like I need to see my options, right? And it just, there was something, I had a gut feeling that wasn't, you know, what I should have been doing. So, so I ended up, so what I did is I worked for an entire semester, the first semester that I was there. And I tell people this, right, because it's important. Everything doesn't always happen the way you think. There's always going to be obstacles. There's always going to be, you know, bumps in the road. And like, for me, I adapt. Like that is, you know, that's been a big motto of mine, of just like, you got to keep going, right? You either like, you sink or swim. And like, I always swam. So, so I ended up working for a semester, and through that semester, that's when I applied to American University, which you know, private school in DC. It's like 65% Caucasian, right? You probably have, you know, you've got a lot of very privileged, right? People that have very privileged backgrounds, as well as, you know, with minorities, they probably had, it was, you know, 25% African American, and the rest, you know, like we were lumped in there, like Hispanics with Middle Easterns and Asians. So
let me ask you this real quick, because you said some really amazing keywords, and I know we're probably getting close to you having to jump off soon, but you said adapting, you said the word obstacle, you said gut. Those three words right there really stuck out to me, because a lot of times, maybe, I don't know about you, but even growing up in my household, it was always, your parents are guiding you, but they're guiding you based on what they believe. How were you able to kind of push your way through and hold on to your gut, knowing like, you know what, I hear you, but this. And then where and how did you get that ability to adapt so easily? Because, you know, parents are very, like you said, very conservative. They want to tell you what to do and what to be, especially Latino parents. And then when you came across those obstacles, what was it that kept you? What was it, an experience? Was it a quote? What was it that helped you navigate obstacles in general?
Yeah, you know, that's a good one, right? Because I think a lot of times really bad things happen to us in order for us, you know, to make those decisions or take that jump, right? And for me, it wasn't necessarily like something tragic, right? Which I'm very thankful for. But it was something that I just knew, you know, I was at a point in my life where I was 18, 19, right? And this is when you're supposed to start your life, if anything, right? So I even though I was so young, and I was, you know, naive, just like any other, you know, I saw purpose, right? Like, and I knew that like there was gonna be something better, and that it was worth sticking it through. Because, you know, I just, I had that instinct. I had that instinct. So, and, you know, and at the same time, like my parent, you're right. Like my parents didn't know, you know, that I decided not to take that semester and instead work and apply, you know, for this private university that, you know, I ended up getting in and all that. But I just knew that if, you know, the risk was worth it. So.
I always talk about that because I'm a teacher by day, and I love doing this, you know, the show with Liliana. And I also have my own 2 girls. One of the things I've always weaved into my instruction in general is just the idea of taking risks, knowing, you know, as long as you're not hurting yourself, you're not hurting others, maybe you'll hurt mom and dad's feelings, but as long as you know you have that gut feeling, and listen to your gut. Because a lot of times we have so many filters after a while that we tend to start listening and worrying about el que dirán, worrying about, oh, what if I don't make it? And then, like you said earlier, that about having purpose and knowing that sometimes things are not going to go the way that you thought they were going to go, and then embracing that's okay. That's okay. I love all these words that are popping out as you're sharing your life and your journey.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you know, so I ended up going to school. That was a whole other, like, I always, you know, I put it in phases, right? And that first phase of getting there, like not knowing anyone, and just like, you know, latching onto my sister, her introducing me to, you know, all the people she was meeting. I mean, she was working, you know, in Congress. So all the Latinos, you know, they stick together. Like it's a really like fun and great experience, but it also exposes the reality, right, of how things are, and how, like, you know, all the white people stick together, and the minorities are, you know, more collaborate more with each other. So that translates to, you know, what we're seeing now, and I think why people are just, you know, they're tired and they want to change. So but that was like, you know, 10 years ago. I always tell people like 10 years ago, you know, to where we're at now, it's crazy. Just social media, technology, everything has evolved so quickly. And, you know, when I did my undergrad, I ended up doing it in broadcast journalism, right? So, and there's a whole backstory too, and I'm happy to, you know, come some other time. Talk about that, but about how, right? Because there is a story of why, like, people ask me, why did you decide to do journalism? And there's a story behind that. Like, a beautiful story, actually. So, you know, so with that, and then the internships that I was able to do, like, that really put me, you know, I was doing pretty much entry-level jobs as an internship, right? So the fact that I had those opportunities, like, really helped me just get beyond, and like, so people, all of that has led me to now, right? And what I'm doing now is going to lead me to,
which is what I now, like you're leading right into that next question. I wanted to ask you, like, how have you taken all of these experience, your upbringing, your, you know, where you're from, where you've been, and now here in Houston, taking on this role, which I'm so honored to have you here, because I had a chance to meet you briefly when we had an introduction Zoom meeting. It almost felt like one of this, like a baby shower. Like here we have the birth of this wonderful person that's just been given to us into this great city of Houston. So tell us how all of these experiences helped you to where you're at now. Talk a little about your position and how that's going and how you got there.
Yeah. So you know, when I first applied, I did the application, and it went, you know, it was easy for me to do the application, right? If I was like, oh, I have this. Oh, I have that. Yes. I have this.
Check.
Everything.
I love it.
Checked, right? And I was like, wow, like this is what I want to do, right? And previously I was, you know, before that I had already been at my position for 5 years, right? I was a communications manager, right? Which was, you know, very instrumental for me in building my managerial skills and working with a team, and, you know, working on more of the corporate side, right? Because I always feel like you have to have both sides to know, right? And so that gave me a great experience in San Antonio too. I got to, you know, explore, learn San Antonio. Before that, I did politics, right? I was I worked for the Texas Democratic Party. And I was a Latino media coordinator and regional press secretary. All the Spanish media, right? So so all of that, and, you know. And when I was in my previous job, I kind of had left politics, even though it was, you know, the company was CHIP and Medicaid, right? Which is for lower income families and families that are in need. So it always, in like those values, like for me, the values have to be there, right? Like there has to be, you know, the fact that it's, you know, helping families that are in need and that need, you know, good health insurance, right? So just, taking those values, like this petition, it's kind of a summary of everything. It's a summary of everything. And, Mayor Turner, he is so dedicated. He's so devoted, not because he's my boss and, because he's the mayor, but
just as a human being.
As a human being, exactly. I mean, the fact that he lives in the same house that he grew up in, that, that I'm sure he fought hard to, to have that, right? To be the owner of that, and just like, it's his forever. That just says so much, right? So, yeah, it's been really exciting. It's been 2 months, I,
you came in straight into
COVID,
pandemic,
hurricane season, racial inequality, injustices,
protests,
everything.
Systemic breakdown of the systemic, racism that we have de facto, de jure.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and on top of it, election year, right? Like,
and election year.
It doesn't affect him, but the fact that we have a national election year, still, like, really, it sets a mood. Right?
It really does, because you are there to be at the forefront, I guess, to make sure that messages are coming back and forth, So how do you see yourself, as you step into this role, how do you see yourself bringing yourself into it? Like your own you say you talk about your values, maybe talk about an experience already that kind of like put you out there and we're like, hit the ground running. What was that first thing that you had to kind of tackle?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many now, right?
There's so many, which is the one that stands out.
When it first happened, I did, I kept thinking about it, and now it's like, wait, which one do I? No, I mean, it was just, I can use like the weekend as perfect example, right? So the press secretary, her main role is to inform the mayor, right? Like whenever he has his press briefings, like making sure that the mayor is on top of all his talking points, that, any questions that, get dodged at him, like that he makes sure that he gives, the correct answer. So, during the weekends, right? Like it's an operation. I'll tell you right now, like it is like we get there an hour earlier. We make sure that, everything is streamlined and, talking points are ready, or that, if the press is going to be there, where are we going to position him? Because the background has to look good, all of that. Right. And then on top of it, once he gets there, briefing him, making sure that, there are no surprises. That's the goal. No surprises. Of course, things happen. I mean, and so my first weekend, it actually went pretty well, right? And that's when, and my director has been really great. She's really like shadowing her, like her mentoring me, tutoring me, just making sure that I see how she does it, right? And then of course she's like, you have your style, you take it as you want. But it, so the first weekend that she left me alone, everything went fine, right? The second weekend, that's when it got, a little more intense, just because it's, there was a lot of things happening. The media, they want to know when the mayor's responses on certain issues, and if they're, pressing issues, they want to know them now. So it was a matter of just like making sure that, the media got what they wanted, because ultimately we want the public to know. We do. Right? At the same time, making sure that the mayor, was on top of everything that he, had to answer, and as well as go and give speeches in his various stops. So it's a lot of juggling. It's a lot of hats, right? That's only one component of the job.
So as you juggle this and you have to be there like on time before, making sure everything's set up, where do you sleep at City Hall? I mean, where do you live? Where do you have different places where you camp out? How does this work?
Yeah, so we don't have different places where we camp out. We do during hurricane season. We at the Office of Emergency. The OEM center.
Yeah, the OEM. Take your little backpack.
We have our little cots and but during the week, no, it's just It's
Okay.
not a 9 to 5. I would
Yeah.
say it's probably a 9 to 7.
Okay. And you know, I did there's this amazing comedian whose name is Shinadu here from Houston. And if you ever have a chance to connect with him on Instagram, do so. But he does a really great rendition, or he will sometimes be the official translator for the mayor. Like when the mayor would come out, like, can you put your mask on? Like literally, I felt like he was going to yell at people, like, can you just put your mask on and be done with it? You know, like you could see that coming, wanting to come out of his mouth, but he's trying to be very, you know, this is what we got to do. This is for us to get through this. And I know in his head, he's probably like cussing everybody out. Like, yeah, like in Spanish, like so if you ever have ponte la máscara, you know, I think he's already learned that Spanish version of that now. But I want to say thank you for choosing Houston, and for Houston choosing you. I think you so far have, you know, done an amazing job, and the work is cut out because this is a big city. I mean, you're coming into like the fourth, you know, we're the fourth largest city, right?
Fourth largest. Well, if our census numbers were to go up, you know, we could go into
right behind LA and New York.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's so important for people to fill out the census. You know,
Yes.
It's not about because they want to profile you or they want to single you out. No, it's because, you know, the more people a city reports, the more resources and funds we get from the national government.
Yes.
Right? For our streets, for our communities, for, you know,
education, everything. Just, you know, and like you just said, you tied it in beautifully. The little things, the simple things that you really don't pay attention to until you lose a tire in a pothole. Then you start cussing out the pothole. Well, this is what the census is for, you know, or digital divide in education. You know, well, this is what the census is for. Now, when you start feeling that little kick in the butt, then it's like, you know, that kick in the butt you felt when y'all didn't have access to internet or this or that or infrastructure. That's what the census is for. So it's like almost having to have that comadreo and connect those things so beautifully, because we're already talking and complaining about it. So why don't we say, hey, here's the census, do it online, do it on your phone. They can come to your door. So, ahora un poquito en español, si tú tuvieras la oportunidad de regresar al pasado y hablar contigo, tú misma, de quizás de 12 años, 11 años, ¿qué te dirías tú a ti si tuvieras la oportunidad de regresar al pasado? ¿Qué tipo de, ¿cómo se dice? Advice or tips te darías tú solita si tuvieras la oportunidad de regresar?
Ay. Está duro eso. No, más que nada porque, de verdad, como dije anteriormente, crecí en una familia con mucho amor, ¿verdad? Entonces, mis papás, yo y mi hermana estamos súper agradecidas con mis padres, ¿verdad? Por darnos esa oportunidad, ¿verdad? Esa oportunidad y también ver de que ellos, ¿verdad? Hicieron lo más que pudieron, ¿verdad? Hicieron mucho por nosotros. Y todo lo que, ¿verdad?, ellos sembraron se ha cosechado, ¿verdad? Con mi hermana y conmigo, ¿verdad? Pero lo que yo me diría es a mi niña de 12 años, ¿verdad? Es que todo no va a pasar como piensas que va a pasar, pero va a valer la pena, ¿verdad? Que todo va a ser diferente, y que no hacer comparaciones, ¿verdad? No compararme con otras personas. Todos tienen su propio camino, ¿verdad? Y uno camina al paso del que lleve, ¿verdad? Y más que nada, ¿verdad? Porque yo siempre he sido súper ambiciosa, ¿verdad? Cuando viene mi carrera y ser una profesional, y, ¿verdad? Mi vida personal, pues, está ahí. Y a veces,
¿qué tan personal? Vamos a ponernos aquí, ¿no?
Sí, pues no, ¿verdad? O sea que no estoy casada, no tengo hijos, ¿verdad?
Ya escucharon aquí.
Y a veces me pongo a pensar, ¿verdad? Ay, a lo mejor no, si no hubiera trabajado tanto, o si, ¿verdad?, me hubiera enfocado más en buscar el amor, pero no, o sea,
todo va, como dices tú dijiste hace rato, todo tiene su purpose, y
Propósito.
o sea, su propósito, ¿verdad? Todo va en pasos, todo ocurre como debe. You said that earlier.
Ujú.
Que a veces uno tiene algo escrito y lo tengo así, ya está, y luego algo cambia, pues hay que ir con la onda.
Así es.
Ajá. Y otra cosa que me gustaba que dijiste también, quería que lo dijeras en español porque hablaste mucho de tus papás y que con la mayor, tu hermana mayor, estaban como que no, ella va a ir a la escuela aquí, cerquitas aquí en la casa, porque aquí está mi
Sí.
hija.
Aquí no
Y
te podemos ver.
te vamos a echar el ojo. ¿Qué
Ay.
le dirías tú a los papás, a las mamás especialmente, mamás, madrinas, abuelitas, las tías y también los papás y los tíos, ¿verdad? Que tienen hijos, que tienen sobrinos, que a lo mejor piensan igual que nuestros padres. ¿Qué consejo o palabra le dirías a ellos ahorita para que se preparen para quizás el futuro que quizás va a tener su hijo o hija?
Exactamente, tú lo dijiste, el futuro que va a tener su hijo o su hija, ¿verdad? ¿En qué consiste eso? El hecho de que, ¿verdad? Ellos tengan la oportunidad de salir a explorar, ¿verdad? Y ver
Uh-huh.
otros aires, otros mundos. Eso es súper importante
Uh-huh.
en su carácter, ¿verdad? En cómo ellos van a reaccionar. Claro, hay siempre el miedo, ¿verdad? De que pasa algo, o, ¿verdad? Porque somos jóvenes también, cuando yo era joven,
Sí.
Sí, sí tuve unas experiencias, ¿verdad? Que me pongo a pensar ahora que, uy, qué
Oh,
tonta.
wow.
Sí, ¿verdad? Pero al final del día también, ¿verdad? Es confianza, ¿verdad? Tener confianza en ellos, en sus hijos y dejarlos ir, dejarlos ir porque las alitas están ahí.
Uh-huh.
Es nada más consiste de dejar que se abran y como va el paso del tiempo, ¿verdad? Van creciendo.
Sí, sí. Y es súper bonito porque tengo dos hijas, una de 11 años y una de 12 años. Y desde que nacieron mis papás siempre, y tienes que estar ahí con ellas y encima de ellas. Pero yo tomé otro camino distinto donde yo dejé que ellas exploraran. Yo no siempre estaba encima de ellas. Si se iban aquí en la casa, se iban buscando, explorando, y esa es donde empieza.
Ujú.
Porque me acuerdo de mi mamá cuando me ayudaba a cuidarlas, no dejes que se vayan por allá, no dejes que se vayan por acá. Pero así es la vida, ya aprendimos y es lo que queremos que los niños sigan adelante, más, y hagan cosas o que alcancen muchas más metas que nosotros, porque es lo que queremos para nuestros hijos o sobrinos o ahijados, que nosotros llegamos a un punto, ¿verdad? Y que de allí ellos van a empezar y seguir.
Así
So
es.
I'm so honored to have you. I loved, sitting and getting a chance to know you, and for, the moms or the aunts or the tias or the tios, the community at large that's listening and getting to know that, a young woman from the RGV, the Rio Grande Valley, Matamoros. I grew up going to Reynosa, so I know all about Matamoros. I have family in Matamoros también. But to see the beauty and who we are and what we do and where we come from, you have so much on your shoulders, you have no idea. And I'm glad that you are brave enough, and you always have, you can tell that you've already been that way forever, like, to step into this role and to fly, because you're literally going to be flying all over the place and making sure that messages get to the mayor, information back and forth. And you are a person that so many girls, like my girls, are going to look up to. And for my girls to watch the press conferences here in Houston about COVID, to see, to see Sylvester Turner, the mayor, to see Sam Peña, to see, Art Acevedo, to see, people that look like them is such a beautiful thing, needed. And also for people who were the dominant, culture, to see people like us who have always been here to step into these roles. So I have done so much in the opportunities because of the shoulders that I've stood on, now I'm those shoulders for someone else. So I just want to let you know that whatever you need, you know, I am now shouldering my daughters, people like you, to be here. And that's what I loved about that shower we had for you, because it was like a network of super comadres that have been, you know, paving that way like your sister.
Mm-hmm.
And we are all here, and for you to embrace everything that you've embraced so far. I'm so proud of you. I feel like I'm like your madrina or something. So.
Hey, you can be. I'm accepting applications.
All right. So final words. We're already at the closure. I can't believe this has gone so fast. So at the closure, I usually like to ask my guests, because of the work that you do, that may take out so much from you, right? What do you do to kind of fill your oxygen tank back up? What do you do? What does Ada do?
Well, Ada pre-COVID, right?
No, that's right.
Post-COVID, you know.
En chanclas, en chongo en la casa.
Sí, con los chores y no, nada de maquillaje ni nada. But, you know, post-COVID, it's more of I come home, I unwind, right?
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes watch they call it trash TV.
Hey, I got a show for you to watch too. I already told you.
Yeah, you know, just because during the day I'm just like focused, and you know, we're talking about all these very serious issues.
Yeah.
That are happening. So you know, sometimes I do just want to come home and just like unwind and disconnect. But you know, I lie, because that's probably like 40% of the time. Others, like I do enjoy documentaries, you know, movies. I'm a big artsy person.
Okay.
I love going to museums, going to exhibits, right? That's one thing that I really do miss. And I'm actually, you know, I live near the museum district. So when that happened, I was like, very perfect, right?
Oh my gosh.
I think the museums are open now, but you know, there's so much capacity that they have. So yeah, that's what I like to do. You know, going to concerts as well, and then working out too. I used to be very into body pump. Like I was a religious goer, and you know, that was pre-COVID, which I'm looking post-COVID to get back into. But that, and traveling too. Like I'm a big, you know, believer in just getting out of your zone, you know, discovering new places and seeing, you know, what's out there, because there's so much out there, and just enjoying it, right? Like enjoying it. Even since when I was very young, you know, I got to study abroad in London. Yeah. That's kind of what just, you know, made me want to keep doing it for you know, for the years that came after that. So, and I, you know, I have my travel buddy, which is my sister, right?
Nice. Yeah. There you go.
Who also lives here in Houston. She was kind of the one who was like, come to Houston. So when it all happened, it worked out.
We'll give your sister a shout out. What are a shout out to your sister and your parents? Los nombres para que podamos mandarles un saludo.
Claro que sí, quiero darle un gran saludo a mis padres, Ana María Ortega y José Alberto Ortega, que viven en Bronzeville, Texas. Mi madre es una educadora, es maestra de kinder, y mi padre es un vocero, ¿verdad? Para el distrito escolar. So he's a bus driver. And, you know, they're great people. They're actually really, really, really good people. And I want to give the biggest shout out to my best friend, mi hermana, Ana Lucia Ortega.
Aww.
Who she knows, right? She knows the, you know, just the impact that she's had in me, and just, I mean, she continues to be my role model. So.
That's beautiful. I cannot wait until my own girls get along like you two. Right now, it's like cats and dogs every day.
Oh, how old are they?
11 and 12. They're only 13 months apart. Yeah. So you know, and a final thing, if once you moved on and you're probably going to be doing the press secretary stuff in Washington for a president one day, or, you know, a vice president, what do you want Houston to say about Ada once she flies from here and continues moving up? What are the things that we're going to say about you?
you know, I just want to make sure that people see me, right, as a genuine and realistic, right? That's always, I think, for people in our professions, right, where you're informing, you're crafting messages, right? Sometimes it can get too fluffy. Sometimes it could be too, you know, far from the fact. So just, you know, realistic, hard worker, but at the same time, you know, I think genuine is probably my biggest word, because, you know, that's what it comes down to. Like, is that person, you know, invested? Are they invested in the cause and in what they're doing? Yes. Ultimately, it comes down to that. Because if you don't love what you do, then it gets hard. So.
It gets hard, and then everything else, like you said earlier, we were talking off before we came on. You said transparency is super important, you know, and being genuine. So again, I just want to let everyone know that you are listening.
Yeah, that's what I want people to remember. That girl was full of ganas.
That's a t-shirt that you're going to wear. Full of ganas. I love it. Yes. I love it. So if you're just listening in right now, because just to let you know, I have a new super comadre. She's been on with me today. And her name is Ada Ortega. She is the press secretary for Mayor Sylvester Turner. And she's hit the ground running literally back in July. And she's been sharing about who she is, where she's from, and how she's taken all of her experiences growing up into the role she has now, which is making sure that and I say our because I live here in Houston as well, that Mayor Turner has the information he needs for all of his press conferences. He's up to date. And you know, I just want to welcome you to Houston again, and keep taking advantage of all those parks and all those museums that you talked about. And just know that Houston is here for you too. And thank you for taking on this job to keep us informed and to make sure that we as a community, all communities, but for me, especially in my heart, in Latina, you know, making sure that we're always represented well, and that you're there also as a role model to these young women, these young little girls like my own daughters, and a role model not just for Latinas, but for everyone to see, look at the wonderful things that we can do and have always been doing. So, gracias a los que están aquí escuchando y viéndonos. No se olvide que mi show La Super Comadre se repite los viernes, los sábados y los domingos a las 10 de la mañana y también a las 10 de la noche por radiocristalusa.com. Y pueden regresar a la página de nuestro radio aquí en Facebook y pueden ver otra vez la entrevista con mi nueva super comadre Ada Ortega. Y gracias por estar aquí con nosotros y por convivir con nosotros y por comadrear con nosotros. Y aquí vamos a estar para recibir tu información, porque tú eres la vocera y vas a darnos la información que nosotros nos vamos a necesitar para seguir adelante en la comunidad, con nuestras familias, con nuestros hijos, con los ahijados, los sobrinos, porque uno sabe que a veces la mujer lleva muchas cosas encima y hacemos muchas decisiones en la cocina, en la casa y afuera en el trabajo igual. So, thank you so
gracias,
much.
Claudia. Es un placer comadrear.
Yeah, I know. Sí, y cuando quieras, me hablas, aquí estamos para ti. Y igual Liliana Elizondo. A ver, la supercomadre, ¿dónde está?
Aquí estoy.
Ay, mira, pues ya estamos llegando al final, pero quería darle las gracias también a la supercomadre Liliana, que tiene este radio y que estamos aquí para la comunidad, como tú dijiste. Viene el Sense, ya tenemos que contar, que nos cuentan, pero tenemos que tenemos que hacer el census. ¿Cómo se dice el census en español, Ada?
El censo, tenemos que
hacer el censo.
Así es.
Hay que
llenarlo.
Llenarle el censo. Otras cosas importantes ahorita, hablaste de votar.
Así es, tenemos las elecciones en el noviembre, ¿verdad? Pero más que nada ahorita, ¿verdad? En la comunidad de Houston es súper importante que sigan usando sus máscaras.
Las máscaras.
Porque el virus aquí todavía sigue. El virus no ha ido a ningún lado. Como dice el alcalde Turner, era que el virus sigue aquí y tenemos que seguir, ¿verdad? Usando
Yo-
todas las
Yo
precauciones.
creo que también tenemos que seguir preparándonos para los huracanes, porque
Los
Así es.
huracanes.
Estamos en la mitad de la temporada del huracán, entonces tenemos que estar preparados para cualquier cosa.
Oye, estamos
Sí,
así con todo,
así,
¿verdad?
De
así, con
todo.
todo alrededor, al todo
Así
alrededor.
como que a lo que venga, a lo que venga.
Y súper importante, un mensaje también a la comunidad hispana, porque de lo que yo he visto en mi familia, amistades de mis papás, que ya son de gran edad, y mis tías, que también están de gran edad, y que a veces se enfrentan con muchas personas de la comunidad que no quieren usar la mascarilla, que siguen, ya quieren salir a pasear y a ir al
Las
tianguis,
fiestas.
a las fiestas, y no usar la máscara o no tener su grupito chiquito. Y muchos, es la misma noticia que siempre oigo, es que dicen, sé porque ya me cansé de oír la misma cosa, al cabo no saben lo que están haciendo, que dicen eso, luego dicen lo otro. ¿Qué le dirías tú a la comunidad hispana ahorita mismo por lo que está pasando con la pandemia y con el coronavirus?
Bueno, más que nada de ser pacientes, ¿verdad? Ser pacientes, es como se dicen, ¿verdad? No todo te llega de un día al otro, ¿verdad? Todo tiene un proceso, a veces el proceso es más largo de lo que pensamos y desafortunadamente ahorita porque no hay una vacuna, ¿verdad? El virus aún sigue ahí, entonces tenemos que seguir, ¿verdad? Siguiendo las reglas, ¿verdad? De lo que es de usar las mascarillas, el distanciamiento social, no tener, ¿verdad? Fiestas, o si los vamos a tener con gente que has estado en contacto, ¿verdad? Que sabes que no han estado en contacto con el virus, ¿verdad? Y ¿verdad? Y se entiende que la gente está cansada, ¿verdad? Que quiere regresar a la normalidad, pero no sé si vamos a poder regresar a la normalidad, ¿verdad? Todo va a depender y pues desafortunadamente aún es muy
Muy temprano.
no se puede decir, ¿verdad? Sí, no se puede decir. Entonces, por favor, háganlo por sus hijos, ¿verdad? Sus queridos. No vale la pena una fiesta, no vale la pena, ¿verdad? Un comadrazo en persona.
Así se puede hacer.
Así en el teléfono, en el WhatsApp, ¿verdad? Pero en persona no vale la pena perder la vida suya o de sus seres queridos. O exponer a sus seres queridos. Más que nada, como dices tú, tienes padres que ya son mayores de edad. O sea, qué feo, ¿verdad? Pensar que fuiste tú.
Que quizás trajiste el virus a la familia. Porque uno puede traerlo y no saber, no tener los síntomas. Y lo repartes como si fueras dando dulces y luego ya después no sabes, luego le afecta a una persona de mayor edad o que tenga otro tipo de like an illness, like an underlying illness. Y luego uno así no, y no queremos que eso siga sucediendo, que la gente realmente tenga esto, que lo toma en serio.
Así es.
Sí.
Más que nada porque nuestra comunidad es la que está afectando mucho. Hemos
visto que somos nosotros, que nos está afectando tanto. Y sabemos que pues hay que salir a trabajar y sabemos que la gente a veces no tiene la oportunidad de quedarse en casa, como yo con mis hijas, pero hay que usar la mascarilla, lavarse las manos, ir a donde deben de ir y regresar a su casa, tratar de ir de minimal contact, salir a las compras cuando solamente se tiene que ir y luego regresar a las casas. Pero este domingo nos fuimos yo y mis hijas. A veces nos subimos a mi coche y nos vamos y cobramos un Starbucks por el drive-thru y nos vamos así. Y vimos tantas personas fuera. Domingo pasado como si nada estuviera pasando. Y nosotros aquí tapadas en la camioneta, pero ¿qué puede hacer uno? Solamente seguir diciendo. Y lo que me preocupa es que se están diciendo que los números se están disminuyendo, pero también mucha gente nos está haciendo el examen, las pruebas, así es que no sabemos realmente si esos números que se están bajando es realmente porque el virus ya nos está contagiando o si es porque la gente no se está yendo a hacer la prueba para ver si realmente es lo que está sucediendo. Sí, porque si estamos poniendo la mascarilla, quedarnos en casa, solamente salir y mantener la distancia, pues eso puede afectar los números, ¿verdad? Pero
Así es.
si seguimos haciendo, ya me cansé, ya me voy a la iglesia, ya me voy a las compras, ya me voy con la comadre, y luego nos están haciendo el examen,
Pues
¿qué
sí.
va a suceder? Es lo que me preocupa. Ojalá que pues que llegue este mensaje a todos, que lo tomen en serio, así como dijo Ada Ortega. ¿Cómo se dice en español? Secretaria
Secretaria de prensa. Ajá.
Secretaria de prensa del alcalde de aquí de Houston. Y gracias por tomar el tiempo de estar con nosotros. Sé que ya tienes que ir a hacer unos mandados o trabajos.
Quiero preguntarle a Ada cómo
Sí.
encontrarla en Twitter.
Sí, cómo encontrarte en Twitter para que la gente pueda seguir y escuchar tus mensajes por el Twitter.
Sí, es @Ada, ADA Press, PRESS, SEC, SS, Ada Press SEC.
Ada Press Sec,
Sí.
en español.
Ada Press SEC.
Busquen allí. Muchas gracias, Ada, por tu tiempo.
Sí,
De verdad que
gracias.
es muy valioso para nosotros el que hayas estado con nosotros, además de toda la información que nos diste para la comunidad, que te hayas abierto de tu corazón y mentalmente con todos nosotros y estuvimos escuchándote y a mí también me das mucha energía, me das muchas ganas de seguir adelante. Y ahorita estoy siguiendo estudiando y quiero seguir preparándome. Soy maestra, pero necesito llegar más arriba.
Claro que sí, lo vas a hacer. Nada más síguele.
Ya me diste, ahora sí que esas alas ya me crecieron más.
Así es, ya. Bueno, muchísimas gracias.
Bueno, Ada, buenas noches y nos vemos pronto. Y nomás quería decirte que si te gusta el arte, ¿sabes quién es Frida Kahlo?
Claro que
Ok.
sí.
Yo te tengo una mascarilla, es color azul
Ok.
para ti. Y cuando nos vamos a juntar para poder darte una, para que cuando tengas que salir a hacer de estar con el alcalde, puedes ponerte a Frida y que todos vean el arte de Frida Kahlo
Okay.
sobre tu mascarilla. Y
Yeah,
les
I
quiero
love
decir a
it.
todos que si quieres ir a una tiendita donde yo siempre voy a comprar mis máscaras, se llama Kismet Boutique, que se encuentra aquí cerca de downtown en el East End, se llama, y Kismet Boutique por Cristina Hernández. Ella me prestó el vestuario para hoy.
Oh.
Me prestó los aretes y también fue sponsor de lo que tengo puesto. Así es que un saludo a Kismet Boutique, que ella fue la persona que puso como dice, el ensemble para el show esta noche. Los aretes, la blusa. Así es que, y si necesitan una mascarilla y les gusta Frida Kahlo, vayan a Kismet Boutique y pueden comprar su mascarilla ahí, pero yo le voy a regalar una a mi nueva super comadre, Ada Ortega.
Listo.
Ok.
Me regala a la nueva comadre de radiocristalUSA.com.
Claro que sí.
Bueno, pues cuídense todos, cuídate tú primero para que puedas cuidar a los demás. Ya saben que aquí la Super Comadre, el show se hace la grabación cada martes a las 7 empezamos y el show se repite los viernes, los sábados y los domingos por radiocristalUSA.com y también pueden regresar a la página y pueden ver la entrevista. También nos pueden buscar por Instagram, Radio Cristal USA, ahí también. So don't forget, come back, watch it again, share this information. Get to know Ada Ortega, which is the press secretary for Sylvester Turner, our mayor. And don't forget to come back and listen to the show on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 10 o'clock in the morning and again at 10 o'clock at night. And come back, visit the page and get a chance to know her, see her, and connect with her via Twitter. So take care of yourself. This is RadioCrystalUSA.com and La Super Comadre with Ada and Liliana.
Hasta luego.
Adiós.
Adiós.
Sigan comadreando.